Hello, story seekers. I'm Ben.
I'm Nico, and you're listening to The Tiny Bookcase.
Welcome from both of us to the new year. In true bookcase fashion, we're starting things off with a look back over the last year.
We are incredibly proud of the episodes we put out in 2022. The stories, laughs, and interviews were vital to our growth as storytellers and podcasters. So we want to take a moment to celebrate a few of our favourites.
We felt honoured by every single guest that they took the time to write something and then come on the bookcase and perform it, chat about it, and be interviewed. It was great. However, we've managed to each pick out our personal favourite guest story from last year.
Starting with my choice. I feel like we really found a kindred spirit in Mark Brandon. His company was excellent, filled with laughs, lessons, and encouragement. Absolutely everything that makes up the spirit of the Tiny Bookcase. What really sold his story for me, though, is the delivery. On paper, it would be damn good. Read out, with the voices in place, it is absolutely wonderful. As gross and funny as it is compelling and grisly. Probably fitting, seeing as it comes from a self-proclaimed author bear. Let's hear his take on Luscious.
Peter was knackered. After scouring every fabric and accessory shop from Marylebone to Mile End, the ballroom was, finally, ready for the dancers to arrive. He felt a pang of anxiety. It looked like too much drapery, too many candles, too many chandeliers, but no, his instructions were quite clear. It had to be like this, down to the last detail, as daft as they all were. The words of his mentor, Random Betty, from wardrobe at the Royal Opera House, no relation, rang in his ears. Remember, darling, do whatever they want, no matter how mad it sounds. It's the only way to get on in show business. Peter scratched his cheek and felt one of the largest spots release its cargo under his nail. 10 months in a tiny apartment above Shoreditch's noisiest late-night chicken shop had done nothing for his complexion or sleep patterns. His sister said she could get him a job working in Superdrug, but he hadn't wanted to waste his training. Besides, he had been promised a life-changing payoff for this gig. He presumed he'd be able to clear his student debt at least. His boss didn't seem short of money. He flipped the house lights and went through yet another final inspection. Yes, the floor was polished to not yet a mirror. Yes, each candle was cut to the breadth of 2 male hands. Yes, every single one of the 14,000 Swarovski crystals he had painstakingly applied to the purple velvet drapes was sparkling as diamond. He ran his forefinger along every line of the 3 pagefuls of instructions just to make sure, but he knew them by heart. He closed the slim leather-bound volume and returned it to the lectern. The phone trilled, and Peter jumped out of his chicken-greased skin, reappearing in it an instant later. "Well?" rasped the voice on the other end. Never a hello, never a mention of Peter's name. Gabriel Calme was nothing if not entirely self-absorbed. "I trust everything is ready and entirely to specification?" I think it is, yeah," said Peter. "You think?" echoed the voice at volume. "I don't pay you to think. It is vital, vital. Everything is precisely, exactly, strictly correct in every single detail," said Calme for the millionth time. "It is to specification, yes, sir," said Peter, feeling his balls crawl. "I'm in heavy traffic in an undisclosable location." Calme was paranoid too. "But I arrive presently. I trust the child is suitable." Peter had picked up the youth on Tinder, looking for first sexual experience, read the profile. In a city of lies, who knew if it was true? But the boy at least looked 18. The instructions specified virginal yet richly in prime. So actual children were completely out of the question. That would be a red line for Peter. "Yeah, it is suitable." He looked to the middle of the ballroom. Curious 18 was tied to the chair inside the golden circle, drugged to the eyeballs, grinning like a lunatic pixie. Dressed in the gown Peter had spent days and nights encrusting with fake gems. "Good," said Calme in a tone designed to scorch paintwork Any single slip could spell disaster. The phone went dead. Peter's heart moved from foxtrot to can-can. He went to get changed into the midnight blue robes necessary for the ritual. Surely it was all bollocks, this. He felt bad for the kid, but maybe he'd get a life-changing payoff too. Outside, Peter heard the rumble of a powerful engine. He moved to his appointed position and pulled his cowl over his head. The engine gunned and roared away. The first dancer entered, depositing their personal keycard into the golden basket by the door. Peter indicated a silver X on the floor by the circle, and the cloaked, hooded figure took up position on it. Outside, a second engine growled, stopped for a moment, then roared off, dropping off another 2 dancers. And on and on. Engine, silence, engine. Dancers taking up position until all 50 stood neatly around the circle. Another, somehow deeper engine growled outside. The door opened a final time and Calme swept in full regalia. Sceptre, ruff, floor-length mirrored robes. Atop his bald pate sat the crown of control, and across his piggy eyes, pinched onto his fat nose, was the mask of reflection. Peter rolled his eyes. Calme looked ridiculous. Curious 18 giggled. Calme glared at the youth, then strode about the room, seeming to inspect every detail. All is in order, he declared finally, then made for the lectern, to the approving murmurs of the dancers. Begin, he declaimed. The dancers turned to one another and slowly began to waltz around the circle. The book promised that their dance, executed correctly, would take each of them from multi-millionaire status into the billionaires club. Fucking rich idiots, thought Peter. Some people believe anything. With your present, said Calme to the air. The judge, me of course. The observer, he pointed to Peter. A host. Let the ritual begin. With a long mirrored fingernail, he unsealed the forbidden pages at the back of the book and began to read. Ahmatet loin no. QS-18 giggled again, suddenly noticed the dancers and sat slack-jawed, staring in bemusement. The ritual droned on. The dancers danced on. Peter stood stock still, perfectly silent, as the book instructed. The bejeweled drapes rippled as if in a strong wind. The candle flames guttered. The chandeliers swung crazily, as if they were about to detach from the ceiling. Uneasiness swamped Peter's usual performance anxiety. He tried to shake away the feeling. Just as it seemed Calme was flagging, and the dancers starting to look limp, a wisp of blue smoke bubbled from the centre of the circle, directly beneath the chair. Then another, and another. Peter's eyes fought to escape his head. QS-18 looked entranced at first, tried to play with one of the wisps, which eluded him. Then he went rigid. Calme's voice grew in intensity as he saw this happen. Quick proset, nasho lepit no. An arm the length of a small hatchback emerged from the floor, a twist of blue and red muscle capped with a 3-clawed hand. 2 more demonic arms joined it and waved about. Peter felt panic rise in him like bad chicken. It was real. It was all real. QS-18 jerked, then seemed to grow in size like a bag being filled with icing as the demon inhabited his form. His jaws opened to at least twice their maximum, and an ululating howl broke from them. The gown burst, sending crystalline shrapnel flying in every direction. Alientet, Magdeth, Rutamanga, spat Calme, dodging a fake garnet. His eyes were wild inside the mask. Then he paused, looked to Peter. The dancers stopped, looked to Peter. Peter's only line in the ceremony lit up in his head like neon, but his mouth refused to work. Just do it, said the voice of Random Betty in his head, no matter how mad it sounds. Somehow he managed to find the words amid his horror. Speak the name of the demon in exactitude, but bind it to your will, O great judge. Relief washed over him like iced water. The demon turned towards Calme, and each of the 3 scarlet eyes on each of its 3 slick triple-horned heads opened and closed randomly. Two of the dancers had lost bladder control, and urine pooled about their stilled feet. Calme was not to be deterred. "This is your name, foul beast of the abyss! Extricadoriad, Lemster, Bon Koala." A cage of golden light began to form around the demon's twisted body. The thing roared, whined, and mewed. "Nix quist lambondia," shrilled Calme. The creature howled. The dancers trembled, but they had to keep still to fulfill their instructions. "Lucius!" shouted Calme triumphantly. Everything stopped. The drapes and candle flames returned to calm. The chandeliers stilled. Peter was stone, his instinct to run entirely overridden by his terror. Around the demon, cage cracked and fragmented like spun sugar. The dancers gasped. Calme gaped. The demon's central head extended on its snake-like neck. "Excuse me?" it said, in a tone of honey stuffed with razor blades. "Lucius!" squeaked Calme. "It's luscious," said the demon. But... Calme hammered his forefinger into the book. The demon peered at the page and let out a small laugh. "Misprint, what can I tell you? People just don't pay attention to the details." It grabbed Calme like a foil-wrapped sweet and squeezed him so he shrieked. Peter closed his eyes, still unable to move, listening to the screams and liquid sounds of dismemberment. Then everything went quiet again. Finally, he opened his eyes to the ballroom abattoir. Luscious turned to him, swinging Calme's head like a conker on its spine string. Its 3 smiles were curious 18s, its button noses cute as his. All the moisture in Peter's body had sweated into his robe. "It's pretty, all this," said the demon, flinging Calme about in a grisly arc. Peter nodded. Thanks." "Still didn't get my first sexual experience," triple giggled the demon. "And now I've got 3 of everything. Time for your payoff." Peter gulped, wishing he'd taken that job in Superdrug.
If you like Mark's story, you can find him at authorbear2 on Twitter or at his website, which is typhon-creative.com. That's typhon creative. You can get his steampunk anthology, The Colossus of the Thames and Other Tales, from his website or on Amazon.
Well, that was an excellent choice from Nico. My choice happened, a little bit longer ago. It was episode 88 that Katrina Sylvie came on. And she was just excellent. Fantastic to talk to about writing, and also performed a brilliant story. Katrina was born in Glasgow, grew up in Scotland and England, and has been just writing stories for absolutely bloody ages, and doing well. Performed at the Edinburgh International Book Festival, shortlisted for the Bridport Prize, and really sort of won our hearts with her story. It was an absolute stonker of a tale, with a plethora of extremely well-deployed story elements and moments of characterization. For that week, I'd also written a slightly tongue-in-cheek fantasy story, and Sylvie's story was the hardest to follow for me last year, as I felt like she'd perfectly encapsulated the genre to a degree that it felt foolish for me to perform mine. It absolutely remains that Sylvie's story is a fantastic example of short genre fiction done very well. I hope you enjoy listening to it for a second time. I did.
1. The Riddle Beast was 10 feet of chimeric grace, half lion, half serpent, with scales that rippled in the sun's red light and eyes like a clouded moon. Aravin marvelled that such contradictory parts could make up something harmonious, even beautiful. This was their last trial, to answer the Riddle Beast's question and gain its consent to pass. On the other side of the gate it guarded grew a tree that could resuscitate the dying world, Behind them, on the road, the Death Singers were a cloud of violent dust coming to destroy that hope forever. Ziska stood by Aravin's side, looking up into the beast's mother-of-pearl eyes. She was sun-weathered and limping, her hair all salt and pepper tangles, but Aravin still saw the infuriating young runaway he had set out with all those years ago. Fist clenched, her other hand on her bow, as if she were here to fight the beast, not answer it. It was so like her that it made his teeth hurt. 10,000 days on the road, and the greatest marvel was that they had made it this far without killing each other. One question. That was all. After everything they had been through, it was almost funny. The riddle beast spoke, its voice grating like wood against stone. Through pain and hardship, toil and fear, what is the force that brought you here? Aravin stared up at the beast, words already blooming in his mind. Before he could voice any, it spoke again. The answer is different for each of you, it added, almost as an afterthought. Only one need answer for both to pass. 2. They sat at the beast's back, facing a horizon turned dust red with the world's decay. What did it mean by that? Aravin asked. The answer is different for each of you. Ziska shrugged aggressively. It means we get a choice of 2 stupid word games to solve. Aravin frowned into the dead distance. Are we here for different reasons? Ziska snorted. It's a riddle, not an oracle. But as usual, when she dismissed something he said, he could see her still mulling it over. I don't know. Why are you here? He thought about it. Strange that the reason behind the quest that had consumed half a lifetime wasn't something he immediately knew. Someone had to do this. I didn't want it to be me. He still dreamed snatches of the life he could have had, the title he had resigned, a perfect, faceless partner, the ghosts of children that never were. But then I imagined what would happen if everyone said that, and I decided to be the one who didn't. Ziska laughed, her low, rasping laugh that grated on Aravin like his sword against a whetstone. What? Nothing. That's just very righteous, very worthy, very you. She spat into the valley. Me, I just wanted anything but the life I was raised for. Aravin stared down at the riverbed, the track of a long-dried tear. So we're here for opposite reasons. Are you surprised? Aravin thought about their motives, his positive, hers negative. Her because, he despite. 1 riddle, 2 answers. He wondered if that was why they might fail in the end. The quest had chosen them both, but they would never have chosen each other. Behind their backs, the riddle beast listened, but stayed silent. 3. Fortitude, gumption, luck. Ziska fired the words like arrows aimed at the riddle beast's heart. Excellent roads, she added, her lip curling but her eyes staying stone. An unshakable moral code. The urgent need to stop the Death Singers who are going to be here in... She looked over her shoulder, where the dust on the road had grown from a smudge to a thundercloud. Less than 3 days. Aravin came up the path, a brace of rabbits hanging from his hand. What are you doing? We're supposed to guess, aren't we? I'm guessing. Aravin dropped the rabbits. You can't just yell the first thing that comes into your head. Ziska blinked. So instead I should stare into the middle distance for half an hour and then say something profound like, Milo the pony who brought us as far as the great river? Aravin sat down by the ashes of the fire. He was a good pony, he said, a little petulant. We wouldn't be here without him. Ziska came to sit beside him, took one of the rabbits for gutting. Almost a truce. I think each answer is 1 word, she said. Riddles usually are. Aravan shook his head. One word to be the difference between ruin and salvation. Just like him, to turn the end of the world into something poetic. It made Ziska's throat itch with annoyance. She slid her knife between fur and skin, thinking how every word that passed between them now glowed bright with a moment's possibility, before fading like a spent coal. 4. They sat by the fire, throwing dead leaves into the flames. Bark, said Aravan. Ziska worried her lip. Blaze. Aravan tilted his head up to the sky's guttering lights. Stars. It was a game they played on the road, mostly when they got so bored that anything was preferable to silence. Once, when Aravan had been nearly dying of a fever, and Ziska, desperate to keep him awake, had hauled delirious non-sequiturs from his parched throat until morning had broken. Gods, said Ziska, remembering the temple she'd been raised in, roof open to the sky. Aravan's head was still aimed upward. Fate. Their eyes met, Aravan's alight with hope. Ziska gave him a half shrug that said, could be. Aravan scrambled to his feet and turned to the riddle beast. Fate, he said, like a musician trying the first note of a song. The riddle beast gave no answer. 5. There were things Ziska tried not to see. How day by day Aravan's face fell under the beard that had gone grey so gradually she hadn't noticed. How the wise sayings that had always made her want to drop-kick him into a ditch dwindled to silence as their guesses fell short and the dust cloud swallowed the horizon. She woke to him strapping on his sword. What are you doing? Going to meet the Death Singers. His voice was grim as he faced away from her, back towards the road. I'd rather die fighting than waiting for an answer that'll never come. She sat up, still bleary. And I'd rather not die at all. Why are you so sure we won't find the answer? Because we've been here for days and we're no closer than when we arrived, and I know why. He faced her, trembling. You. Your cynicism, your rage, the way you treat this whole thing like some kind of joke. She stood, angry now. A joke you laughed at? So what if I did? So what if it made me feel lighter, just for a moment? What difference does that make here and now? He shook his head. I wish I had been given any companion but you. Ziska's heart was a target split by an arrow. And I wish I'd been alone. You think I needed your righteous proverbs, your idiotic hope? Her voice started to shake. Do you think that's what kept me going after all? He turned away. She didn't call him back to make him try again. She did it because, at the end of years of clashes and friction and petty annoyance, the worst thing he had done yet was threaten to leave her alone. Aravan, she said, furious, desperate. They never used each other's names. The fact it had just been the two of them for so long made it absurd, like thinking about each breath before they drew it. Ziska saw it startle him, stop him temporarily in his tracks. Behind her, another voice spoke. You may pass. Ziska turned, not understanding. The riddle beast's mother-of-pearl eyes had closed. Beyond, the gate gleamed open. She looked back where Aravan stood staring, like a man woken from a dream. She realized, with a soul-deep shudder, what the beast had done. It had judged her answer true, in all its awful vulnerability. But now, she would never know Aravan's. He could leave her forever in doubt. What if something high and abstract had been enough for him, after all? What if she was the only one weak enough to need another's help to get here? He looked deliberately into the riddle beast's closed eyes. Ziska, he said, fond and exasperated, A curse and a prayer rolled into a word. She smiled, a weary, familiar smile, like recognizing the punchline of an ancient joke. "Come on," she said. "Sooner we finish this, the sooner we can be rid of each other." "Can't wait," he said, and they walked through the gate together.
You can follow Katrina Silvey at SilvyCat on Twitter. That's SilveyCat on Twitter. And also her website is katrinasilvey.com, which is CatrinaSilvey. Nearly stumbled over that one. You can also grab her book, Meet Me in Another Life. It's an international bestseller, and it's about to be made into a major motion picture starring Gal Gadot of Wonder Woman fame. So look out for it, read it, buy a copy, follow Katrina because she's going places.
It's not just us that gets to be involved in these stories, though, is it, Ben?
Absolutely not. No. We've appealed to our audience, in particular to our Patreons, and they've picked one. One in particular from episode 69.
Oh, do you think that's why they did it? We're on to you, patrons.
Absolutely. One of our patrons actually gave us a little bit to read out of why they'd chosen this particular tale.
It set my imagination going from the start with the different beasts and mythical creatures that were described, and Brooke writes the magic really well. You could feel the panic from the hunt, which kept me gripped in the story. The fast pace meant I was just glued in. She described everything really well, and it made me want more. Could only be one person, that, couldn't it?
Absolutely. This will be, of course, Caitlin Brooks' story for the prompt The Hunted from episode 69.
Sorry, I'm waiting for someone, Kate said, dodging the siren's touch as she reached for her hand. Waiting for who? Zeus? Have you seen him? Not lately. What are you doing together? I thought you stayed in your own little circles. Though you're missing out on being sequestered from the gods. Poseidon is delicious. The way he makes me squeal. She giggled with delight. How's his brother? Kate shook her head. He's a demon. I would never lie with him. He raped my sister. Now my other sister is in danger of the same fate. This is the only way I can keep her from harm. By sacrificing yourself? More or less. Kate clenched her teeth. Well, seems like you're already hunting then. I'll leave you to it. I'm going to introduce myself to those fine-looking morsels. I mean, mortals. Playing volleyball down there. Kate grimaced. Part of her wanted to protect the unsuspecting humans, but the other part was terrified of the siren. Pesano snapped her head to the right, scanning the lush jungle a few yards behind them. Kate followed the siren's gaze. What? Just the trees. I thought She gasped. A solid thunk sounded as a scream whistled from beyond the trees. What was that? Kate's skin crawled with unease. Frantic movement caught her eye. Several hundred yards down the beach, a human girl emerged from the tree-lined path. She was running. No, sprinting toward Kate. Tears poured from her eyes. Kate glanced behind her, but saw no pursuer. That's when she realized the girl was shouting. But Kate couldn't hear her over the crashing waves. Pesano, do you see this? Kate pointed. The siren remained silent. She spun around to face her. Can you hear? Oh my goddess! Tears sprung to her violet eyes. A sleek, black quill protruded from the base of Pesano's throat. Her once lively eyes were clouded and shiny with death. Her skin was the color of a dead fish. A fountain of blood bubbled over the siren's bottom lip, running down her chin and splattering her neck like tribal war paint. Kate fanned her hands. She aimed to help, to lay her down at least. But the other end of the lengthy quill was buried in the sand, forcing her to remain upright. Kate's head swiveled, trying to locate the beast that shot the quill. It could only be one animal. She had to move. Several cries erupted in Kate's ears as her adrenaline kicked in, heightening her senses. Down the beach, the few other humans fled, running for cover in the thick jungle. She turned back to the sprinting girl. A gathering sandstorm nipped at her heels. Kate took a step to the right just as another quill sailed through the sky. the poisoned tip biting into the sand inches from her foot. The girl's cries reached her ears. Run! The girl shrieked as a sudden torrent of lethal quills rained down around them, puncturing the picturesque paradise. Silver claws extended from the swirling sand behind the girl, hooked into her back, and yanked her to the ground. A ferocious growl erupted as the beast tore into her, ending her life. Raising its menacing mustard eyes to Kate, the Pirial licked its blood-stained muzzle, its lips pulled back in a snarl. Calf! Kate breathed. This wasn't the plan. No one was supposed to die. Why would he unleash the Pirial in plain sight? Why attack humans? What was Zeus thinking? The wind roiled around her, tugging and pushing her to change. He was growing even more careless, frantic to claim her. As if he could hear the wind coaxing her, the Pirial hissed, its lips pulling farther back to reveal dagger-like teeth. Kate listened to her element. She leapt into the wind, her flesh disappearing, and directed the salty breeze into the humid jungle encroaching on the white sand. She didn't look back, hurtling herself through the thick foliage, twisting and rolling through the vivid flora. But the Pirial wasn't an easy hunter to flee. They never lost a quarry. That's why the gods turned them loose. They were the ultimate weapon. Kate pushed herself through the heavy air as fast as she could, but there was too much humidity. She could feel the Pirial catching up, feel his breath on the wind's tendrils surrounding her. But in the air, at least she stood half a chance. Just a little farther. Bursting through the dark canopy of leaves, she raced on, her target shining like a beacon, calling her to safety. Death cried out as the Pirial killed another unlucky human to cross its path. Their final breaths carried on the wind, whispers filling her mind. Kate mourned their pain, held their anguish, and tasted their sorrow. She was the common thread linking their deaths. She'd killed them all. Kate pushed the fevered whispers from her thoughts. She spiraled down beneath the tree's shady leaves. The network of portals that connected the human realm rippled just beyond the next tree. If she could reach it, she might be able to lose the Pirial. The muggy air seemed to hang stagnant, as sticky and immovable as honey. Kate's breaths came out in short gasps as she strove forward, pushing the breeze harder. From far away, another snarl rattled her teeth. A shiver gripped her spine. The air split apart and a loosed quill found its mark, slicing into her side like a toxic needle. In the same breath, she fell from the sky, the toxin in the quill immobilizing her elemental connection. Kate wheezed as her chest smashed against the damp earth, and all the air in her lungs was forced out between her teeth. She spared a quick look at her side and gritted her teeth, feeling the poison enter her bloodstream. She had to remove it. She didn't know what would happen if enough toxin filled her heart. If only Zeus were kind enough to let her die. Inhaling sharply, Kate wrapped her hand around the sleek quill and jerked it upward, screaming as it slid out of her flesh. Scarlet blood pulsed from the wound, soaking the thin material of her dress in seconds. She squeezed her eyes shut against the brilliant pain. A throaty growl echoed close by as the pounding of swift feet caused the dirt beneath her palms to tremble. She had to get up. Pressing her filthy hand to her side to staunch the flow of blood, Kate rose unsteadily. Sweat pulsed down her face as she stumbled through the unforgiving jungle toward escape. Before her, a giant leaf split in two as another quill rent the air. The smell of blood and dirt made her head swim. The desire to lie down and float away was overwhelming, but she couldn't give up, couldn't let him win. A string of tears fell down Kate's cheeks as she made her feet take a few more steps. She was almost there. The Pirial rasped right behind her. The heat of his breath grazed her calves. Searing pain engulfed her as the animal raked her skin with its claws, shredding her flesh. She stumbled to the right, but a powerful hit from a large paw sent her sprawling forward instead. Kate collapsed over a moss-covered rock. Her neck snapped with the momentum. With blurring vision, she turned her head, waiting for the Pirial to deliver the final blow, when she slipped and fell through the cool air as if she had leapt from the top of a towering tree. A pair of solid arms caught her, cradling her petite frame against a muscled torso. Right on time, my sweet. Rest now. You'll need all your strength. The deep voice whispered as the pain capsized, claiming her consciousness.
You can follow Caitlin Brooke on Twitter at Caitlin_Brooke. You can buy her work directly from www.bhcpress.co.uk. caitlin.com. If you're looking for Caitlin's work, you should try Dark Flowers, Wired, and Among the Hunted, which is book 1 in her upcoming Skyglass series.
Well, 3 excellent stories, completely summed up the year we had, I feel, in 2022. There were 50 episodes last year that we put out.
So many.
It's a lot. Well, it's basically just
It's a
just
year.
under it's a year. It's just under half of the amount of episodes that we've put out. Full stop. We had thousands of listens, tons of stories told, loads of laughs, loads of chatter, and I felt like we learned a lot about the process of writing from different perspectives, from the sheer volume of guests that we had last year. It was so good.
We've had so many different voices be able to give us their insight on what it is to be a writer. It's absolutely fantastic. Like there's
Yeah, and I actually have found myself deploying a lot of the advice that we've received and sort of pointers that we've gone through with people.
So
in particular, the stuff about like actually just getting stuff done.
Yeah, just doing it.
Yeah, it's always nice to hear. It sounds a bit sort of creepy, but it's always nice to hear that other people struggle occasionally. Even people that are supremely talented, like the people that we've mentioned today. And it's overcoming those struggles, isn't it? That actually is meaningful.
We've got a great comprehensive list of what turns people off in stories. That I feel like it's kind of cheating, isn't it?
I know, but it's sort of inside baseball to a certain degree, because what turns people off in stories for writers might be quite different to just your everyday reader.
Well, you'll have to tell us.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, we'll be going forwards, of course, but we've had Nico and I've had a bit of a stuttering start to 2023.
Yeah.
I had a bereavement in the family. My last remaining grandparent died, and we had the funeral last week, which is one of the reasons why that we didn't have an episode in the first week of 2023.
And as some of you may remember from the hardest break, we've had issues with my mum's health in the past, and she's unfortunately quite unwell at the moment. But you look forward, we move up, we've got guests booked in, and I think the best medicine right now for both of us is probably going to be writing more stories and doing what we love.
Absolutely. I think it was definitely a very shit week, the opening week. And I mean we very much enjoyed putting together the Die Hard episode that we put out. And definitely we're going to be writing lots more stories. I'm salivating to get stuck into the next few prompts that we've got lined up. So yeah, we have every intention of continuing on into 2023 and getting loads more guests, writing loads more tales, having a few more laughs, and seeing where we're going to be by the end of the next year, seeing what little writers' journeys we've been on and stuff. I think it's going to be fantastic.
And there's good things to come.
So with that in mind, we will see you next week for another episode of The Tiny Bookcase.
Love you all.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Tiny Bookcase.
Remember to subscribe, otherwise you're going to miss out on the future fun.
Also, tell a friend. If you like this episode, link them to it.
We'd be tremendously grateful. You can follow us on Twitter at BookcaseTiny, Facebook at The Tiny Bookcase, and Instagram at BookcaseTiny for updates. Speaking of supporting the podcast, well, magic can only take one so far. The Tiny Bookcase is supported by the generosity of its patrons. Those kind souls have really kept my belly full the last year. Let's cast a spell for them, shall we? For magnificent beardery, let's cast the Chinicus folliculale spell on Gary Laird. For rich ginger tones on the scalp, let us cast the Orangi Hedondo spell for Scott Byrne. And for general fabulousness, why not the Ooh La La, How's Your Mother spell on Matthew McLaren?
How do you come up with that shit, man?